Hello, welcome back to Geek Warning, the cycling tech focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome, and joining me this week, we have a Suvi Lopanen. Suvi, good to hear from you again.
Good to hear from you as well.
I should say see you, but no one else is seeing you at the moment until we eventually take on that new video thing that I keep hearing is becoming very popular. Also joining us, Ronan McLaughlin. Ronan, welcome.
Welcome to you too.
Oh, I thank you very much. It's good to hear from you and see you at the same time.
Folks, I've just realized I have an issue with my mic on this recording. So bad news is you probably will still be able to hear me. The good news is that if it's not up to the standard we hope for, we're letting you know now. But yeah, you're going to have to suffer through listening to me in either way.
Yep. I think it's worth noting that if you are listening to this on the free feed, then do expect to hear the occasional ad throughout the episode. You will also be missing out on the Ask a Wrench that we have at the end, where we answer mechanical questions from our members. So if you'd like all that and you wouldn't like ads, then just remember members of Escape Collective get access to a private feed that gives them everything and takes away the ads. So food for thought if you're hearing all this. This week, we've got a few things to get through. There's an interesting new bike. There's something new from Garmin. Got a bit of industry news. Something new from Surly as well, which we didn't expect to see. Then there's something on Suvi's mind, which had me giggling, so I'm having us talk about it. Of course, we have a PSA, and at the end, you'll hear from Zach Edwards and myself for Ask a Wrench. All right, on with the show. Let's get into it. I think top of the list, industry news. Suvi, you've been reporting on this a bunch. Is Eurobike the world's largest bicycle trade show? Is it cooked?
It's a tough question. There's varying opinions on this, but it does seem quite cooked, to be honest.
What's the background?
It's been in quite a lot of trouble lately. There's been numbers have dropped, and then the big German trade organizations, after last year's show, decided that they want the show to look something different, so they issued like a 10-point reform plan to the organizers. No, there were not really any promised by the organizers. So the trade organizations decided they're not going to attend. And these are biggest German organizations. So they left. Bosch then said they're not going to attend. And they used to be one of the biggest stands. And just last week, Shimano confirmed that they are not attending either.
Another massive stand.
Yeah. And Shimano, to be honest, that's been like since November last year, I think. It's already been rumored, and they'd cancelled hotels and whatnot last year already. So this was the official announcement. But it does seem it's going to be empty.
Am I right in thinking that SRAM had already not appeared at last year's Eurobike as well?
Yeah, they were not there last year. But interestingly, both Shimano and SRAM were at Velofollies earlier this year.
Yeah,
so
which we spoke about last week, if for those wondering what that is. Yeah.
Because I haven't been there, I know how huge the Shimano and SRAM stands typically are. I'm wondering in terms of football pitches, just to give some context here, what size of stand are we talking about? It's not like a little stall, a little gazebo or something. These are huge halls, and Shimano usually took up like a quarter of a hall, if I remember correctly, maybe even half a hall.
Yeah, it was a lot. And they had upstairs and all. Like they actually have meeting rooms built for it. I don't even know how they built the whole stand, because they actually build rooms.
Yeah, it was almost like but it was almost like containers, and the stand was so big you wouldn't see this ship. You wouldn't notice this shipping container in the middle of it. I guess that gives some context to the size.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it into numbers that people that haven't been to a trade show might understand. It's kind of the halls I'd say each hall is bigger than a supermarket in terms of a large supermarket, and then Shimano's stand,
and as confusingly laid out as a supermarket.
Yes, the milk, aka Shimano, was always in the back.
Friedrichshafen wasn't too confusing, but since it moved to Frankfurt, it's just like impossible to navigate efficiently, and like it's even, I don't think you've been to Frankfurt, Dave. It's even bigger.
I haven't. No, only Friedrichshafen.
There than it was in Friedrichshafen.
Yeah, many people say that was that shift from the previous location was the start of the downhill, and obviously then COVID happened, and since then it's I find it interesting, so having spoken with brands, and I wrote about this in November, December after Ruler last year, whether they, whatever at Eurobike will do to revamp the show, whether they still want to attend and whether trade shows are
Mm.
valuable for brands anymore. And there's no clear answer. I would say the majority say that it's not valuable anymore. And if it is, it's not for the same purposes as it was. So regardless of what we're going to see, it's not going to be the same as it was.
Yeah, I guess to offer some background on this, I mean, Eurobike fundamentally was like a retailer trade show. It was a legitimate trade show. So the idea was you'd get all the retailers from across Germany, and that then expanded across many cycling markets across Europe. The idea was one place that brands could showcase new products. Retailers would fly in for 3 or 4 days, learn about all their new products, be able to place orders, go back sort of knowing what they had to sell for the season ahead. And I guess the internet and various other factors had sort of caused a slow decline with that. But fundamentally, I think when you don't have brands like Bosch, you don't have brands like Shimano or SRAM that are fundamental to running a retailer, you lose much of your draw card for running the show. And I think that's probably what we're reporting on here, is that this is really like very clear signs that this show's, even if it continues, is perhaps not no longer a necessary part, or no longer a necessary trip for a lot of retailers.
I think that the Bosch point is extra significant also because the direction the show has gone in over the last 10 years or so, being cargo and e-bike, quite heavily focused on those two categories.
Yeah.
Had a lot of, I know Shimano and operate in those sorts of areas as well, but had the road and mountain bike markets and the consumers of the show sort of frustrated. And so if Shimano and SRAM had pulled out but Bosch were still there, you would say, well, it's just the direction the show was going. But with Bosch being such a huge player in that segment also pulling out, yeah.
Without them, all you'd see is 43 new types of valve.
Yeah, on Eurobike, I think they're gonna reduce the holes from 5 to 3 going into this summer's show. And there's a lot of talk that 2027 will be very different, that they are really, really trying to address all these issues. And I think, Ronan, your point touching on e-bikes and motors, that's been a huge sticking point. Because I think off the top of my head, I would say probably 3 points out of those 10 were addressing the fact that the show was increasingly focused on e-mobility. There were cars, basically, whatever you consider
There was some
e-mobility.
very strange stuff for a bicycle trade show.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
some of the halls.
And there was also questions about the legality of some of these, that they're not actually even road legal in a lot of European countries. The stuff that was shown on the whole. So it's maybe going to get addressed, because they did already cancel the separate e-mobility show that was meant to happen this year. And I think that was purely because of the industry pushback. So they're listening to something. But many have said that this year is going to be empty, and then next year is the one last chance that they're going to have. So we can't say whether it's cooked yet or not.
No, but we've heard similar before. I remember hearing very similar stories of Interbike before that disappeared for good. So anyway, it doesn't look good. Not that we want the show to end, but yeah, I mean, there's always going to be other events to attend for us, and dare I say, it's not looking like we'll be attending this year. So. All right, Suvi, I know it's been a very busy week for the industry. So what other news has broken in the past 7 days or so?
Campagnolo news. So,
oh yeah,
as someone pointed in the comments of this article, I will say this outright, is that this is perhaps slightly positive news in all the doom and gloom
I don't believe
of
it.
the industry. But basically, the headline is that Campagnolo has said that they're not going to lay off any people. There were lots of rumors towards the end of last year that they're going to have to cut 40% of their staff in Italy and potentially reshore the production. And yeah, just that they're in dire situation. And now they've reached an agreement with the employees and with trade unions and whatnot. And they've decided that they don't have to let anyone go, but they are going to reduce their hours quite drastically, I would assume, for a lot of employees. So basically, yeah, they have to cut costs somewhere. So people are not losing their jobs, but they're probably not working nearly as much, which means they're not going to get paid as much. And the contract that they've agreed on is only running for a year. So yeah, after this year, they'll have to renegotiate.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it did feel like, and it does feel like Campagnolo has been turning its ship around a little bit. Like the latest product releases have been well received. I know Ronan said some really nice things about in the past. I'm starting to test the new gravel stuff. Early signs like it's really good. So yeah, hopefully some sales come their way, and you know that sets a new direction for the company as well. So
It kind of, you sort of hope that this was like a final hurdle because we're hearing so much positivity about how well the new super record is performing in terms of sales, and that they are going to trickle that technology down into more accessible price point options, and that seems like it's very close at this point. All the communications come from Camp. I keep referring to this as imminent sort of thing, and so I guess the hope is like, yes, this agreement contract thing is only for 1 year, but hopefully that year is just enough to steady the ship, get it back on the right course, and in a year's time, there's no further action needed. Perhaps hours or whatever has happened here are reset to normal or closer to normal than what they are right now. But I think like I appreciate the hours may well have been cut for a lot of staff, but I still think this is a better approach than just getting rid of huge swaths of staff.
Well, then like cutting the legs off the company basically was kind of what was initially proposed.
There's no brain drain. You retain the expertise, you retain the knowledge and training that those staff have, the capabilities that they have, and yeah, hopefully the ship is steadied this year.
Yeah, time will tell, but yeah, wishing them all the best. And then I think it's probably also worth talking about one of the biggest stories we had on Escape in this past week, which is sort of something we broke, and certainly not an official announcement, but more just word through the industry. Ronan, this is I'm referring to Trek, of course, and yeah, for those that haven't seen your article on this, what's the brief rundown?
Basically just that Trek are in major difficulties, which will come as no surprise to anybody. I think there's been rumors of the sort of difficulties they have with stock levels and the retail decline and the retail outlets that they acquired of late not performing as they'd hoped. And as we've seen over the last couple of years, they've already made significant layoffs. And in the first or second week of January this year, they had another round of layoffs that, yeah, as you said, wasn't publicly announced, but yeah, we got some information on that and have published a sort of a detailed look at what the challenges that Trek currently face are on the website that went live last Thursday, I think. So anybody who hasn't seen it can go and get the full story there. But yeah, it's not easy reading, but it's probably also not a surprise to most people who are reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, head on over to escapecollective.com for that one. It's interesting, and I think it's pretty representative of a position a lot of other companies are likely to be in at this point. Although hopefully maybe not as extreme as what's highlighted in that story. But anyway, I think it's time for us to get into some happier product news. And before we do that, I'm just going to go change a creaky BB90 bottom bracket. All right, and we're back. Let's news. Suvi, there's a new Garmin. What can you tell us about this radar?
There is a new Garmin. Garmin has a new rear radar. It's RearView 820. It's basically an update to the RTL 515, which has been kind of the gold standard rear radar for years now.
Massively popular.
Yeah, and quite outdated in some aspects, but still performs well in the function of detecting things approaching you from behind, cars primarily.
Does what it's supposed to do without messing up and doing things that it's not supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it doesn't die halfway through your ride. But the battery life isn't the greatest. But the new radar does seem to address a lot of these issues. It has a lot better battery life claim, and it is important this is a claim because we do not know how it's actually working in real life. It claims up to 30 hours if you use only the radar function, and 24 if you use the flashing day mode. So it's quite an improvement compared to the RTL 15, which was up to 16 hours ever. It's got USB-C charging, which was a lot requested update.
Yeah.
So
the most requested from what I saw in your previous review of these products.
Yeah.
And also a legal requirement now.
It is, yeah.
Isn't?
Yeah. And it has a replaceable battery, which is also a legal requirement. So it's not exactly like Garmin is doing this all because of feedback. It's regulations. Well.
And what they would be doing for feedback is, sounds like there's a new mount to go with it as well. Another common problem or common complaint.
The new mount, I mean, it is a new mount, but I don't think, based on the pictures, again, I haven't seen it in real life, and I haven't seen anyone use it really on a video or anything either. So I can't comment on it. It looks relatively similar. It still has the kind of stretchy rubber band that attaches the actual mounting point. But I would say the actual mounting maybe reminds me more of the Wahoo mount now, slightly more. Okay. Like it's slightly bulkier, perhaps.
So your mention of having not seen anyone use this is quite interesting. I think it's worth talking about. We didn't get any press releases or heads up warning on this. It sounds like Shane Miller of GP Llama, who's very much like a voice in this space. Perhaps no one has spent more hours testing radars than he has. Suvi, I'd probably put you high on that list though, behind. And I think, he also was left out of the news on that. Sounds like maybe Raymaker of DC Raymaker was perhaps the only person in media that got their hands on one, and also not enough time to do a review from what I understand. But what's going on here? Why release a highly technical, hugely popular product with no opinions on it?
I can't answer that. I think that's a question to Garmin, and I don't know whether they will answer that. But my hunch would be that there's been a lot of issues with the radars, and not having the experience, maybe that drives the sales in the beginning, because people will buy them without a review, without knowing whether it works or not. I don't know. It's quite a pricey investment. That's the thing. It's the most expensive non-camera rear radar out in the market. So I don't know how many people would just go and buy on it. What's your take on it?
Probably enough, given that their previous reputation in the space, and that they were the original in the space, or they acquired the original in the space, and they have really proven themselves. I think enough people would just like jump in and take the chance.
But then a lot has changed. Too much has changed for it to be the same.
But like, of all the other radars that have been announced over the last few years, it never crossed my mind to invest in any of them. I just, you know, a couple of bad stories about a few of them, and then knowing feeling what I feel about some of the other manufacturers, it just you know, it wasn't going to go in that direction. But I seen this announced, I was like, I probably would buy that. I trust as much as I hate Garmin heads units, and don't get me started again, because it had me screaming out loud just yesterday. I trust Garmin's radar lights.
And it's kind of sad to announce this, and I'd say it's not something I love, but there are a number of brands in cycling that as soon as they release something new, they have a customer base that buys it. And I think there's a history of like Zip being one of those brands long ago. These days, I'd say like Silka and Pinarello and Colnago, and Garmin is probably in that space where they have this pretty loyal customer base with the financial situation to do so, and they buy it to experience it themselves as soon as it comes available. And perhaps Garmin is playing straight into that.
I have an alternative theory. Garmin has, in my experience, not been the best at dealing with critical reviews of their products in media. Perhaps they've just said, well, we don't really like what they say, so we're just going to bypass that entirely.
That's very possible. Or maybe they saw what you did to the Wahoo Ace and they're like, oh, let's not chance that.
Yeah, possibly. Who knows?
So either way, it doesn't seem like anyone has reviews of this, and it'll take until people get their hands on one through what I assume is retail means in order to do so. If anyone is at Garmin listening, then please send one over to Suvi. She's got experience with pretty much everything else on the market at this point, so it'd be good to add that one into the list.
There's too many radars at the moment.
It's become it's your electric inflators.
It is. There's a whole box of them.
Based on your vast experience, is my general skepticism towards anything that isn't a Garmin radar fair, or am I just too cynical?
I think you are generally too cynical, Ronan. It applies. It applies to radars as well.
Tell me what you really think.
But I think there are others which are quite good. And it depends on the user. I think it's the same as with the head units. Like if your standards are really high, it depends what you want it to do. Which radar, I know it's meant to do one thing. It's supposed to do that, but it depends so much on where you ride, and just like there's still a lot of variables. And like, how do you want to only use it when you go for a really long ride? And you might be more forgiving that, okay, it didn't detect that one car. But if you ride on a daily basis, it's your commute, you might get a lot more alerts, which means you'll get more false positives. It depends.
So if you're in the market today, which one are you picking for yourself, having not used this latest Garmin?
The Garmin, the RTL 515 is definitely the benchmark.
Okay.
I do think the Wahoo tracker is really good. Yeah, the Wahoo is really good. The new design, I do really like that one as well. And I specifically over this winter, there is a review coming of a couple of these new ones. The design one, I've particularly liked the fact that it pairs with the front light, and then there's an additional way of getting the notification, the indication that there is something approaching. And I have found I've been testing it against the Garmin, and I just haven't got any false. Well, there've been a couple, but it's just that those do happen even with the Garmin. You might sometimes get some false alert either way, negative or positive.
But it's largely correct that you trust it, unlike some others that you had tested. Yeah.
But saying that, they're all in the same ballpark of price. Would I recommend one over the other? No. I would say like go with the Garmin if you want something that 100% works.
Okay, all right.
For the record, I don't think it's too high a standard to assume that a touchscreen head unit that changes the data fields just because it's raining, but then won't respond to the actual touch of your finger is not a high standard. That's a basic standard.
Yeah.
I'm riding a lot of gravel in the wet in the moment. I have this thing where every time I look down, the data fields are changed on the screen. And then sometimes you look down and one's like highlighted, so it's about to change, and you're trying to press the back arrow so it doesn't change, and the back arrow won't fucking respond. I'm getting annoyed.
What head unit is?
And I know you can lock the screen, but 1040.
Does it have a rain lock? I know the Karoo has a rain lock for this very reason.
So the Karoo has a touchscreen and buttons, which is...
What are the chances?
I think that's... I think that's the way to go. But it does have a screen lock. Yes, I know that. But Garmin put their controls for music and podcast and all that in a drop-down menu. So if you lock the screen, you can't do the drop-down menu.
And you can't change a song?
And
my God.
Look, first world problems, no doubt. But if you're going to commit to touchscreens, it needs to be better than failing at a few drops of rain.
Fair enough. All right. Well, yeah, one to watch, Garmin's re-entry / latest entry into the space it created. And yeah, it sounds like a good one, but we don't know, and we probably won't know for a little while by the sounds of it. All right, let's talk bikes. There's 2 new bikes on our list, quite different to each other, I'd say. Let's do the one from Surly, the Midnight Special. It's a drop bar bike, and this is interesting. It's an existing frame, but it's the first time in Surly's history that they've equipped a carbon fiber fork on a bike. They've also equipped carbon fiber wheels. Crazy times happening when Surly adds a carbon fiber fork to its bikes. Clearly, the market has been asking for this. It's probably worth noting that fork on the front is just a Salsa waxwing fork. Salsa being a sibling company of Surly, all owned by the Quality Bicycle Products Group in the US. So yeah, not too surprising what we're seeing there, but a little bit unexpected from a brand that has always pushed the whole steel is real and we don't do plastic and vice versa and all that. So a bit of a change of messaging for Surly, but the bike looks nice color, and I think it's $3,500 US for a complete bike, so still well priced, but one to look out for if you're into the steel stuff. And then at the almost opposite end of the scale, as far as roadish bikes go, Rose has the Shave Aero bike, all carbon fiber. Suvi, what's the story with this one? I think there's a few different models happening here, which is all under the same name.
Yeah, it is called the family of bikes is called the Shave, and then there's just the Shave model, and there's a Shave FF and a Shave FFX. And Shave is the more endurance oriented bike of this range, and then the FF and FFX are more race bikes.
Do we know what FF stands for?
Fast forward.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Less rude than I thought.
Fast forward extra.
Is that true?
I don't know about the extra part, but I read something in the press release about fast forward. So, and that sort of helps differentiate the bikes because the Shave is a more endurance focused option, as you said, Dave, and the fast forward is still like visually looking the same sort of frame, but is more, the geometry is more in line with what their team, Unibet, Rose, Rockets would want for road racing.
Yep, that standard Shave, which is the endurance geometry, is quite interesting, and it seems to tick a lot of boxes for things we've spoken about on the podcast before, where we wanted more race bikes that are marketed as race bikes, but that actually have the features and geometry that are well suited to an everyday cyclist. And I have to say the stack heights and the reach numbers on those are quite accessible. They to me, they look like higher than something like a Cervelo Caledonia or a Giant Defy. And closer to something like a Trek to Mane or even a Specialized Roubaix, but while keeping that like aero styling and the race name. That all said, we're joking beforehand that it's exactly what we've been asking for, but yet we ourselves got confused by the fact that there's very different options within the same model name.
Speak for yourself here,
I
Dave.
got confused.
Yeah, a little bit of context. We've had this conversation numerous times on the podcast where we're like, yeah, like brands need to make bikes that look like they're World Tour race rigs, but in a more accessible geometry. And that's exactly what Rose have done. They've just confused it a little bit by using very similar names for them all. Which I mean is probably harsh when I think about it, because we spoke about the Pinarello Dogma and the Dogma X every time this conversation comes up, and the only difference in that is an X on the end of the model name. And the difference here is you've got the Shave, or you've got an FF and an FX.
Yeah.
Yep. But
it works once you understand it.
It kind of gets me. It gets me though to follow up to those conversations that I've been meaning to bring up in the podcast for quite a while. But and that comes from conversations with brands like, why do you not do this? Like this, people I see in my local group that riders who maybe would benefit from a more endurance oriented frame are on the World Tour race bikes because they like the look of them, and that's what they see the World Tour riders. And the answer I've got is like, you can't really have your cake and eat it. The rider who will benefit from an endurance geometry is probably also going to benefit from more frame compliance and a different ride characteristics and handling characteristics than you're going to get from the aero profiles that you have on a race bike. And so we could tick the box for you, no problem, and we could make you a bike that looks like a hyper aero bike but has a more accessible geometry, but the ride comfort is still not going to be right for that rider. And so yeah, some brands are like, that is why our endurance bike looks different. The frame tube profiles are different for a reason. But then you've got the Dogma X, and which does have slightly difference to it, especially at the rear end. But now you've got the Rose, and the Shave is, until you delve into the geometry numbers, it is practically identical looking across the three different options.
Yeah. It's quite simply just a marketing problem, right? Like the bike that people should be buying isn't the bike that the brands are promoting and are making attractive. They're putting all their efforts into athlete sponsorship, and all their social media always shows like race bike and going fast and performance and aspirational speed, and then they're trying to sell a very different bike to the person that is likely to buy the bike.
But is it possible to leverage a normal person in marketing to the extent that you could generate the same sort of sales as leveraging a Julian Alaphilippe or something?
Who knows?
I don't. It's a tough ask.
Yep. Just need Harrison Ford.
Maybe, yeah.
Is he good at selling bikes?
I don't know. He's the one.
get Brad Pitt on your
Yeah.
bike.
No, at least Harrison Ford, I know. At least he used to cycle. That's why he popped into my mind. But yeah, Brad Pitt might be a little out of reach of a lot of the cycling companies today.
The FF and the FX though are interesting looking. Like the delving into them a bit more on the geometry. I mean, they've got a 74.5 degree seat tube angle, so they're definitely slightly more accessible in terms of the progressive positions that racing riders are adopting these days. And there's a small nudge in terms of reach as well. It's maybe 5 mil longer than what I would have expected in my size. So it's a interesting.
This slow, annoying, incremental changes, incremental progression is something that I've painfully witnessed in mountain bike, and am now slowly seeing it happen in a little bit in gravel, but more in road right now. And it's just like, can we just get to the end already? Like, we know where this is headed. Just add the 20 mil, make it 76 degrees, done.
And that's where I think a brand like Rose is missing a trick. I mean, if you're just following what the big brand names are doing, you're always going to be in their shadow. If you just like leapfrog them, and I know it's a riskier approach, but I mean, you're teamed up with a racing team now that is, if anybody could convey a message for you, it's going to be that Universal Rose Rockets team. And the people who understand this stuff know what they're looking for, and most brands aren't offering it these days. The people who don't understand it, it doesn't really matter as much. Again, you're selling a bike based on looks and vibes,
which are quite good.
Yeah, I just think cater to. Yeah. The only thing that jumped out to me from the geometry that I really don't like, and you do see it quite often also, is like the single fork offset across the entire size range. And so like it gets back to I think the conversation we had before was Trigger's broom, the sketch from a show in the UK one time where the guy was like, I've had this brush for 20 years, and then turns out he's changed the shaft and he's changed the brush head and he's changed everything about it. So it's no, but like the bike that Dave, you and I might ride would be very similar in terms of handling characteristics, but the bike Suvi, you and I would ride are very, very different. I ran the numbers very quickly, like in the trail on an FX is 58 in my size, which I'm like, oh, I like the look of that. And then I look down the size, and the trail on an XS is 69, which is, I mean, that is, I think, too high for a gravel bike.
Yeah, that is a
no, gravel bike's like 80 plus nowadays for me. So
we do very different gravel.
No, that's just the bike size.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I guess I get you now.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But speaking of small bikes, I think Rose used to be interestingly quite good for small riders. They used to do 650B wheels on some of their bikes, I think, especially in gravel. They then, I think it was around 2020, stopped doing the customization as well. So, I mean, like Canyon, they're dropping a 650B from the ranges as well, the small sizes. And Rose is not offering the customization anymore either. And this one, for example, does come with a one-piece cockpit. So I asked them, are you, same as like Scott would offer you a free swap if it's the wrong size? It was a little bit of a not confident answer that whether official channels will allow you to do that, and they are a direct to consumer brand. So
you just reminded me on the 650B thing. I had someone who had a extra small Canyon Endurace that I was helping with, and they had a flat tire, and they called me and they're like, I don't know what's going on, but I've tried an inner tube and it just keeps bunching up in the tire. I'm like, that's really weird. And the next day they called me, like, I've now tried 3 inner tubes and they keep bunching up in the tire. I can't get these inner tubes to fit. What is going on? And they bring me the bike in, and of course you never immediately think the wheel size is different because it's a road bike. And it took me a moment to realize, because it wasn't written anywhere on the tire. It just had the number rather than say 650B, it had it just didn't say 622 on the side. It was 584 or whatever the number is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And eventually I found that number. I'm like, this explains everything. And so that was fun. That was a good use of 20 plus minutes while we figured that one out. And then of course you can't really get tires in Australia for those things, so that's also fun. I think that wheel size, as much as it makes sense in smaller bikes, it just it's pretty clear
especially,
why. It's clear why it has failed to sort of gain traction, so to speak. But
one thing we didn't mention is what is the difference between an FF and an FFX? and
One
it's
has the
the
X.
carbon layup, the geometry, and yeah, the X is extra high carbon
Gotcha.
grade.
Lighter frame.
So that's lighter frame, yeah, presumably stiffer or something as well. But the in terms of geometry, there's only two options. You got the normal endurance shave, or you got the FF and the FFX, and then the difference between those two is the graded carbon.
Yep, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think just to do this segment backwards, we didn't actually explain what Rose is to half the world who might have never heard of the brand. I think people in Australia and the US would be excused for potentially having skipped this whole section by now. But it's probably worth noting that Rose is a competitor to Canyon. They're German, right? German based. Yep. So yeah, key competitor to Canyon, consumer direct brand out of Germany. They had pulled out of the UK for a while due to Brexit, but they've now since re-entered. But yeah, it's not a brand that you see too often outside of Europe. It's they haven't done as much globalizing as the likes of Canyon, but perhaps one for the future. It's time for an On Our Mind. Suvi, I've put this on the run sheet as something that we discussed in our tech meeting earlier in the week. I thought it was worth sharing. Apartment dwelling and bike ownership. I'm keen to pick your brain about dealing with bikes in winter when you live in an apartment. And you had a very hilarious comment regarding something taking your hose to a public park. What have you been doing?
Well, cleaning, storing bikes in an apartment in a flat is a nightmare, but also in the winter, especially washing them is another even bigger nightmare. And over the years, I have come to find different solutions to this. The first one has always been washing the bikes in the shower or the bathtub, which depends who you live with, or if you live by yourself. Well, it's free to do that, but with certain flatmates, I have had to also sneakily do this when they're not at home. Clean the bathtub / shower after, it's a good excuse to do that. So they were always happy because I was cleaning the shower a lot more often than they did. But I have also found ways to clean the bike outside. Which one of them? Maybe I'm going to share the story that I shared with you first, because that is one of the ways, which was, actually I shared two. I'm going to start with the neighbors. So I think there's many ways you can do this, but I found in my old flat, there were neighbors that I was surveying them for months and months first. So I didn't just straight up walk to their door. I work from home, nothing else to do. So I figured out that they also cycle. At least one of them does cycle. And I also identified another thing, which is important. They have a garden hose, which is in their front garden. So I do not need to go to the back garden or anything. It's just on the driveway there. It's there. I could see it. I could see it was used sometimes to wash the car. So one day I appeared to their door with a very dirty bike, because I thought that's going to make the case better, that I am covered in muck and the bike is covered in muck. And I was like, hello, could I potentially...
Can I use your shirt?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably their first thought, like, what is going on with her? But I asked to use the hose, and they're obviously like, oh, yeah, you can use the hose. But yeah, long term, I think it was a little bit awkward at times, because I would go into their front garden to wash my bike. And I felt like I should really knock on their door and go and like just chit chat. This was our only connection. We talked about bikes and I washed my bike in their garden. So I was also searching for other options, and currently my options are, there's two hoses. There's one hose in a park that I can use. No one's like guarding it. It's not gated. Nothing's happening. There's a camera that is filming it, and I haven't yet been put up to the local news as the weirdo who's washing their bike at this park. So I did use the hose there, but it is like nearly a kilometer away from my flat. So the bike usually gets a little bit dirty on the way back home, and there's no brush or anything. So I have created another solution. I have identified a water outlet another place. It doesn't have a hose, so that's an issue. So I bought a hose, and now I have a canvas bag that has the hose. It's like an extendable hose. My brush and my cleaning things, and then I get home from a ride, and I need to. This is an important point. You need to get out immediately. If you leave it, you will not do it. So I get the bag, and then I go and cycle to this outlet, use my own hose and my things, clean the bike. Yeah.
I have a feeling like this conversation might lead to a brand listening, sending you one of those like pressure washers, the battery operated pressure washers. So if you're listening, Suvi's in need.
I don't really need that either, because I do
Oh,
have
okay.
I have multiple options for cleaning my bikes in my flat,
Oh,
slash outside my flat, but
okay.
I haven't bought I have considered those pressure washer thingies for a long time, but what I've opted for instead is a cheap option because I didn't want to spend much money, like a weed sprayer, like a
Yeah,
portable one. It's
yeah.
got enough
That's a good one.
pressure to do the job. It costs £7 instead of 70,
It's
and it does the job.
easy to store. Don't have
The
to charge it.
issue Yeah, that's the thing, but because the main obstacle I don't think is like having something to wash the bike with. It's just like I live in the second floor. I need to go up. Then I need to carry my bike up with me. Then I have to get down with the bike and the cleaning supplies. And if it's the pressure washer, I need to have that filled because there's no outlet outside my flat. So that's the main obstacle. I understand, like, if you're going to, like, a race or, like, a gravel race, I know mountain bikers do this, that they would store it in their car. Like, it's part of their what they pack into the car. That's
Mhm.
great, but the weed squisher, it works for that as well. So
Suvi, is there a car wash near you?
oh, there are a few car washes, yeah. There's also a car wash that I've yeah, another befriending experience. I have befriended like the non-coin operated self-service car wash people and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
walk up to them and be like, can I borrow your thing and wash my bike? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen Dave just like die a little inside when I suggested a car wash because obviously a power hose, which yeah, I think at one point you wrote about Peter Sagan
I
destroying his
did
bike with
write
a
a
power
piece
hose, if I
about
remember
Peter
correctly.
Sagan shows us what not to do in washing a bike, which is
Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking specifically of the car washes where you pull up and a person washes your car.
Hmm.
Could you do a deal with them? It's like, can I use your hose for 2 minutes and here is £2
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. Just you don't need to do it for me. I will do it or something.
Yeah. I think they're usually reluctant to let you do it. So yeah, I think it's the same as with the neighbor. You need to like build your relationship or I stalk them first. Identify whether they're a good candidate
very
for.
very key tip for people in apartments. You need to stalk your neighbors before you ask neighbors of them.
Yeah, I'm happy. I
Because
think none of my
I think
neighbors
that's
are listening to this podcast, so they
yeah,
don't know what a weirdo I am.
direct tip from Suvi.
You've already told us that the neighbor whose hose you've been using is a cyclist,
I
so
know.
potentially they could be listening.
Yeah, they could be. Well, now they know I don't live
Not
there
that,
anymore.
not our demographic, are they? Ah, okay.
All right. Well, let's make this useful for people that live in an apartment. So
Yeah, tell us your address,
yeah,
Suvi, so people know where to get you a hose.
I'm
exactly.
not revealing my outlets.
Not what I had in mind, Ronan. But I think yeah. So tips for apartment dwellers for washing bikes. I think it's first worth noting that like not everyone in every climate needs to wash a bike. I think Suvi, you're in
Mm,
Scotland. Every ride or a lot of rides end up in a bike that does need to be washed down. Otherwise,
should
it's
be
going to
washed.
be
Yeah.
or should be washed down. I think people that ride in dry climates can probably get away with like maybe just wiping their bike down with like a baby wipe or a rag from time to time. But yeah, I think that's fundamentally the first thing to rule out. But yeah, it sounds like bathtub if you've got access to that is perfectly fine. How do you do it? Does the bike go upside down? Does the bike go wheels in? How do you?
Wheels in. Yeah, it
Okay.
depends on the size of the tub.
Hmm.
It is, yeah, depends on that. And with showers, I would prop it up. So usually it fits. A lot of people have told me my bike does not fit in the shower. It usually does. If you can fit in there, I think your bike can fit in there.
Mm,
You just need to, yeah, prop it up on the back wheel. And then I think it's also quite good for keeping the drivetrain kind of at the bottom. So then when you are washing it, the oil and whatnot is not flowing
sure.
onto the bike, back onto it, which is why
Yeah.
I would also, and I think there are some people who say you should never wash your bike upside down.
Yeah,
I can't
it
remember what
goes
exactly
it
the,
pulls up the frame tubes and that sort of thing normally. So it's like the
yeah,
opposite way of the drainage holds.
yeah. So preferably the right way.
Hmm.
Other than that, it just fit it in.
Okay.
Maxing your chain, and obviously that's for apartment dwellers, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great thing. Not And when people are reluctant to start that, I would say it's for the cleanliness. If you do have to clean your bike in the bathtub or shower or anywhere inside, even if you do use baby wipes or whatnot, it's so much better because you don't have to do as much kind of degreasing and then the leftover oil. When he does get on surfaces, you're gonna spend time scrubbing that off. So
Yeah, I agree on that. I think chain waxing, for however reluctant people still are about it, I think the people that have tried it and live in apartments have decided it is the better way forward. But I think especially for people living in apartments, like the ability to, one, not have a chain that is greasy, so you can walk your bike past all the furniture and all that without stress, but being able to whip the chain off and keep it in a contained area that doesn't need degreaser or doesn't need any cleaning products, you're literally just dropping it back into the wax, I think is the better way forward in that scenario. So yeah, I think it's a hard one to argue with once you've done it and seen how clean it can be and how well contained it can be, and that cost of entry is a thing, but also a $20 slow cooker is not a big cost compared to ruining your couch. All right, Suvi, so you've got the bike has been washed either in the shower or in a stranger's garden or in a public park with dogs looking at you strangely asking why you're using their water bowl. And then the bike's washed. The drivetrain, I mean, we're pretty strong proponents of waxing in this scenario. If not, it does complicate how you degrease a drivetrain in these scenarios. So figure that one out. But yeah, third, drying the bike. What do you do there? Let's say you're indoors. Any tips there? Are you just using like a microfiber cloth? Do you have anything else that you do?
yeah, I just use towels and I don't know what it is called. You know,
Your
they
roommates
use it for
normally, I assume. Grab your roommate's towel for this
yeah,
task.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But you know the little fluffy, it is some sort of microfiber, the ones that they use for cars as well, with the little wiggly strips of microfiber.
Yeah.
I
Like a
find
drying cloth.
I got yeah, exactly. I got one only last year, and that's been a lot better than just the cloth.
Okay.
I don't know what it does. More surface area because of the little prongs that come out of it. I do not
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Anyway, they
Super
work really
absorbent.
well.
Mm.
Yeah. And I would also recommend, because I am clearly a budget conscious person,
Mhm.
you can often get these cheaper if you buy the car specific ones.
Yeah.
Goes for a lot of bike cleaning kind of brushes and products, not the cleaning product itself, like the sprays. Yeah, I would use that. I
Okay.
have tried hairdryer as well, for the chain especially, but I would not spend time on that. I barely have the patience to dry my own hair, but let alone my bike.
Yeah, I think the hair dryers, like one way. There are also like little USB battery operated high pressure blowers now on the market, which I've played with a bunch of them. They all work, but I think if you're in an apartment, you just got to imagine that you're just going to be spraying water further around. So probably the cloth is the best for most things, and then you could probably use the pressure blowers for like the chain or your disc brakes if you really want to, but just consider where that water is going to go. So all right, well there you go. Apartment dwelling. Anything else that we want to talk about?
Can I do my usual putting you on the spot,
Yeah.
Dave, and ask if you've got a recommendation for one of those blowers? And going back a little bit further in the conversation, like have you got a recommendation for one of the portable power washers?
Portable power washer, no, because I'm not really sure what mud is. I think the portable pressure blower, I think the best value one that I'm aware of is from a company called Wolfbox, which is the one that when a lot of YouTubers that I would trust have done big shootouts of sort of generic branded pressure blowers. The Wolfbox one is often the one that tends to win in terms of the amount of air being moved and battery longevity and general quality of the product. So I think that's one to look for. There are a number of cycling brands now putting brands. Muck-Off comes to mind. I think Dynamic is another one that are now selling these things. From what I've seen, truthfully, there's not really any real reason to pay the bicycle tax. A lot of the more generic ones that you can buy online are just as good.
Are there any metrics to, because like when you look these things up online, there's like 1,000 options.
Yep.
Is there like a CFM or something?
Yeah, they use CFM, but I think take that with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, I think a lot of those figures are, much like lumens and bicycle lights, are almost imaginary as far as the claims to actual efficiency and effectiveness goes. So I think fundamentally, I think I'd point you towards, I think there's 2 YouTube channels that I would trust in this space that I've seen. One is Project Farm, very much a guy with a used car salesman voice that creates boring videos, but sorry to them, but they're very useful videos, and the information in a lot of their videos, they tend to come to nice conclusions, and I like the way they test things. The one I'd put a little bit more weight on again is the Talk Test channel. And as the name would suggest, they really started like in terms of testing like impact wrenches and torque wrenches, but they've since expanded out to doing stuff like these little electric blowers, and their tests are normally pretty good. So I believe from memory, the Wolf box that I end up having, and I've also covered on Escape Collective a few times in Threaded, I believe that one won both of those channels shootouts against 15 others. So that's why I ended up settling on that one. Also, if you've got the budget, the one I actually use is from Makita. It's a much bigger thing, much more expensive, but that's pretty great. It's again, maybe not for the apartment dweller because you're just blowing water everywhere around the place, but for those that need like a more portable setup, maybe for using in the garden to dry off a bike, they're great. All right, let's finish things up with a PSA. We haven't had one for a few weeks, it feels like, and this one recently popped into my mind actually, just in regards to drivetrain wear. I know it's a topic we've beaten this horse quite a lot, but I think it's worth talking about because I've come to the realization that we used to have these old drivetrain wear rules, and I don't think they apply anymore. So those rules are like, if you replaced your chain in time, you typically get 3 chains to a cassette, or sometimes I'd hear 5 chains to a set of chain rings. And I just think it's worth noting that those rules seem to be no longer applicable, given that modern chains in 12 and 13 speed configurations tend to be incredibly durable. And in some cases, I've seen them just outlast a cassette before they show elongation wear, or aka stretch. But yeah, I think it's also the other element is just the cogs themselves are much thinner than they used to be. And so they just don't have the same like wear allowance that they once did. So I find, once a chain is hit 0.6 or 0.7% wear on a 12-speed drivetrain, you can rarely get a new chain onto that cassette and not have it skip. So I think it's just worth putting that out there for people that are used to what they used to do on 9-speed and 10-speed drivetrains, where they would replace a chain and that old cassette would be great. I just more and more I'm finding examples of why that isn't true anymore, and it's a bit sad, but I think overall, I think you'll find that you're probably still getting further on the new modern chains than you were before. So just food for thought.
It's not a very nice thought.
Sorry.
The food tastes rotten.
But yeah, another factor just to keep in mind is that smaller cogs will wear faster, right? There's more wear per tooth as the cogs get smaller. So our drivetrain's running like 10-tooth cogs or just smaller chain rings than what we used to run before. I think that's perhaps another factor for why we're not seeing the components last as many chains as we once did. But so anyway, for people wanting to get multiple chains on their cassettes, replace your chains sooner. I think that's the one thing you can do. 0.5% is commonly regarded as the replacement point now for 12-speed chains. I would say if you've got the ability to check the chains, consider replacing them even earlier than that. There's not many tools that will show you, but if you've got such a tool to do so, then do that. All right. There you go. A PSA about chain wears. Well, yeah, that's the end of the episode. But for members, stick around. We've got Ask a Wrench coming up now with Zach Edwards. All right. Suvi, good to see you. Hear from you.
You too.
Ronan, good to see you, but not hear from you because of your audio issues.
Yeah, well, you said you could hear me fine, so hopefully it was fine.
All right. Thanks all. Until next week. Ciao.